What if your growth problem isn't leads, but what happens after the sale? According to my friends over at LinkedIn, companies who prioritize customer experience are 24% more likely to achieve higher revenue growth and an NPS score 27% of the time, compared to those without customer success teams. Meanwhile, my friends over at Forbes say that 80% of customer success leaders expect their efforts to reduce churn in 2025, which makes this message clear. Sustainable growth is dependent on what happens after you get an initial yes. In this episode, I had the opportunity to sit down with my friend Bradley Rausch. He's a client experience architect and trusted backend profit partner. He breaks down why most founder-led growth and group coaching programs don't have a lead problem, but a post-sale architectural problem. He comes to the table with over 6 years of experience helping founders transform chaotic growth into scalable, high-margin businesses. He helps founders to turn a 1.5 to 2 times more profit without sacrificing values or, even worse, burning out. He's designed powerful 72 hours first onboarding experiences to building referral engines, testimonials, and smart ascension pathways. This conversation uncovers the 4 critical sales that actually determine long-term growth. If you've ever blamed bad leads or uncommitted clients or overpromising sales teams, this episode is for you because it'll challenge that thinking and show up where real leverage lies. And Rausch joined me this week to tell me more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. If you're ready, my friend, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, my friend, and I'm super excited to talk to you about client experience today, buddy. It's great to see you, and happy Wednesday to you.
Happy Wednesday. Sounds good.
Absolutely. So, Bradley, I wanted to start our conversation by asking you to define what it really means to have an authentic client experience and really meet people where they are, because in the work you do, I kind of think the heartbeat of what you do is really giving the people what they want and meeting them where they are. So what does that mean to you to offer or to create an authentic client experience?
Yeah. When people hear the phrase in client success, I oftentimes will get the impression or idea. A lot of people will feel like, oh, it just means I simply need to spend more time with my clients, or it means, oh, I need to put more time and energy into my clients and eat into my margin, etc. My definition of a really aligned and really effective client success engine or system, if you will, is one that continually improves on and scales client results while also continually with scale removing dependence on the founder and dependence on the team from a day-to-day perspective. With AI and with where we're at right now, 2026, and even AI will become even, of course, more powerful by the day. There's really no reason that with systems and its scale, you need to be spending so much personal time in the business, but also there's also no reason that you need to have your client results suffer because of that. And so I think it's this perfect world between making sure that you have a balance and knowing when to put in your time and effort and discretionary effort into the business and into the clients, but also knowing that even without your time, putting in a system for making sure that client results continue to become greater as you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bradley, I'm also curious to ask you about the relation or correlation of time management because when you're serving clients in today's fast-paced world, they always want their time back. So I'm curious to ask you, how do you think that relates to the work that you do in a client success, and how cognizant are you when it comes to time management and the amount of time you're asking your clients to do something, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. So I look at this from two directions, one from the business and one, of course, from the client. So on the business side, in terms of time management, human capital, putting in the resources, et cetera, to fulfill a client. The reason I only work with founder-led brands, actually, and founder-led meaning the founder is the person on the ads on the front end, the founder is the person that people connect with on organic content before coming in and joining a program, et cetera. The reason I only work with founder-led brands is because there's so much leverage you get throughout the entire process in terms of the trust you build with somebody before, during, after they join a program or join an offer. The way in which you can work with your clients, set expectations with your clients differently than if it was just a company, a branded corporate something or other. So from the business side, in terms of time management, I think it's really powerful and a very under leveraged tool to systematically transfer the trust from the founder to various members of the team or to various, just resources, even AI platforms, things like that. Because when you do that effectively, the person isn't always reaching back out to the founder, to the team. They're utilizing resources that are already put in place for them that they know that they've been properly explained they're there. So I think from a time saving perspective on the business side, that's really important and has a lot of leverage that you can really only get as a founder led company. On the client side, it's more or less the same coin, just kind of flipped with expectations. The missed opportunities to set expectations throughout the sales process, onboarding process for a client can be really, really large. Like that gap can be really, really huge. And that's something that I'll come in and immediately work on a business with is, cool, what expectations are you setting that you're saying, but also what are you implying that you will help somebody to achieve or help somebody to do? And then they're going into the offer, into the program, thinking that it's going to be the sun, moon, and stars when it's really not. And that's okay, but just be honest with it, And so if you can properly set the client's expectations to tell them where to go, tell them how to get there, tell them where to ask their questions before coming to somebody and raising a red flag and saying, hey, what is this? That I think is going to be a much more efficient way to deliver on promises you made to a client, while also protecting, your scale and your margin as a company.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bradley, I'm curious to ask you about your non-negotiable list when you decide to work with someone, because it also has to be a mutual, beneficial partnership on your end too. So I'm wondering, what's your non-negotiable list as a client success architect when you agree to work with people and when you don't? What are your non-negotiables in that regard?
That's a great question. Biggest one would be founder led. Again, there's so much leverage to get in that and so much trust that's gained on the front end, so much relationship depth that can be made on the back end. So that's my biggest one. In terms of revenue or, kind of top line, bottom line, as far as where you're going, scalability level, et cetera. Sweet spot is usually between about 500K to 3 million. Two reasons for that. One is because hopefully, fingers crossed, by that point, you're looking at some pretty decent margin and you're now very conscious about scaling up that the profit and not just the revenue. Because it's like if you bring in 100K in additional revenue, yet you're only keeping 5K of it, I'd rather you bring in 10K and keep 9K. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to be really careful with what revenue you're bringing in. And usually founders at that level are conscious of a quality revenue issue versus just a quantity. The other reason is usually by that time, businesses, founders, again, specifically, have had this, oh crap moment where they're like, I can't do this all myself. And they're not only ready to hire, of course, they've started working with a lot of doers in terms of they've got VA, they've got maybe a couple of contractors, things like that. But they're finally wrapping their head around the idea that they also need to outsource their thinking. And so not just the doing, but the thinking in the business. And I think when they kind of come to finally overcome that mental hurdle and kind of letting the baby go, right? It it can become really, really powerful then, of course, to have multiple minds in the kitchen in the right way. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a sweet spot of where you work with people is going from chaotic sort of growth or chaotic sort of touch point into their business or their client experience into sustainable growth. So how do you go from chaotic to sustainable? What's the process there, my friend?
So, from a client success lens, my whole framework IP is based around what I call the 4 sales system. So everybody, this is the premise of this is that everybody focuses on the first sale, which is enrolling somebody into an offer program. Most common types of companies offers I work with are coaching, consulting, service based, or SaaS companies. And the most interesting thing about, I think, that again, just the framing of the IP, and I'll get into what each of the 4 sales are in a second, but is everybody already walks around thinking about, oh, how can I make more? How can I sell more? How can I get more front end people in the door? And so I learned really early on that, if I approach the conversation with people that says, hey, how would you like to do better by your client? Or, hey, how would you like to make more from every client you bring in? For some people, that's attractive and that's great. But for a lot of people, everybody's so hyper focused on sales and top line and revenue, et cetera, that coming in with that language, I think, was really, really important. So 4 sales framework, again, it's based on this idea that everybody focuses on the first sale. And there are actually 3 other key moments in the client journey, client delivery, that need at scale just as much structure and strategy and prep and frameworks and systems to really scale effectively. So the four sales kind of with this methodology are: the first one's enrollment, the second one is onboarding. So I like to say the first 72 hours after somebody makes a payment or that initial payment. The third one is what I call advocacy. So that can go in the direction of either testimonials or referrals. And then the fourth one is ascension, which is getting them into a higher margin, upper tier, higher priced offer. Sometimes that means just a continuation of the same offer that they're in now. Sometimes it means downgrading them into something that's also higher margin, yet lower touch point, something like that. But essentially, what is that next step? And then how, when, where are you introducing that next step to the clients in your initial offer?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you believe that there's a difference between high quality revenue and just generating revenue.
Yeah.
Revenue. So I'm wondering if you can make the distinction between the two and what you want people to know about that, my friend.
Yeah. Actually, high quality, just the whole concept of high quality revenue is like really where this started, because I saw so many businesses bringing in uh basically going on and being like, hey, you have a pulse, I'm going to try and close you, right? And it's just like, it's not at all sustainable. People come in and no one ever really, I feel like, takes into account the cost or even the lack of potential revenue for bringing in a client who's misaligned, because they're going to take so much more time from your team. They're going to take so many more resources, both effort, capital, et cetera, just mental bandwidth, everything. They're going to also really take a hit on the client culture. Everybody talks about the team culture. I don't think we talk about client culture enough, because if you've got one client in there, even just one, who's saying whispers, saying things true or maybe not true or bad or negative or whatever, in whatever light, it's going to cause you issues in terms of the belief and the credibility with other clients. And so you really want to protect your client culture as well. Bringing in somebody who is quality, essentially what that looks like is somebody who is going to give their discretionary effort to you in the form of referrals, testimonials, ascension, et cetera, right? Because that's essentially what you're asking them to do, is you're asking them to make extra consolidations outside of what they already signed up for to give you more. But the only way that happens is if you were then able to systematically give them more and deliver on the promises that you made at scale. And so the other kind of piece of this I guess just backing up one step in terms of like, how do you set that up? How do you ensure that if you have somebody who could be quality revenue, how do you make sure they stay quality revenue? A very simple way I'd like to put this or like to frame this is, I spend most of my days so like if I had a job description in one sentence, it would be helping people deliver on the promises that they made to their clients at scale, and making sure that you're placing those promises at the right spots to then be able to systematically over deliver every single time, which increases the LTV of every client, makes every person want to work with you more through, again, referrals, testimonials, ascensions, etc., and then have a longer term relationship. So it starts with you, and it starts with identifying those opportunities that could be really high quality revenue. But then if you don't nurture it properly, they can very easily turn into low quality revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Bradley, full disclosure, I'm an old sports reporter, and I know that in baseball that when it comes to momentum, that you're only as good as your next day's starting pitcher. So, in that context, I wanted to talk to you about momentum and building momentum in the client success base, because I know that you're big on helping clients redesign success so that momentum builds, my friend, and it can have a belief or a lifetime stabilizing value. And I'm curious to talk to you about that and the sales and fulfillment side of it. So how does momentum, redesigning client success systems, and sales all work together? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
I think the biggest missed opportunity for momentum is actually in onboarding. Everybody thinks that onboarding is just a time for, hey, is the document signed? Hey, do you have access to a portal? Have you watched the first couple of videos? Like it's all very like 2016 to put it in a certain way.
Yeah.
And what I like to do instead is really design the onboarding process to make sure that within, call it under, honestly, most of the time under 24 hours after somebody joins a program, an offer, that they are receiving a significant amount of value, again, at scale. It doesn't matter if you can do it for one. What matters is if you can do it for 100. So again, usually using some sort of AI component here is great. Can you deliver on a promise that you made, not all of them, but a single promise that you made in the sales process within under 24 hours that they also have not gotten from another program that they've tried in the past? Because everybody else has tried something. Everybody's tried something before they come to you. So if you can do that systematically at scale, the opportunity for you then to have a client journey that tolerates a lot of friction is very, very good. It's very high, because there will be friction, and nothing's perfect. Nothing is ever going to be 10 out of 10, and that's okay. The question is not how do you make it 10 out of 10. The question is how do you allow for your clients to create that relationship with you and you with them, that they tolerate it when it's an 8 or a 7 out of 10, because they know how you are of value to them and they know how you can show up for them because you've already done it. So in the onboarding process, there's 4 specific emotional states that, and we can get into each of these if you like, but there's 4 specific states that I like to have people really install in those first 72 hours that, again, directly correlate and track back to a very heightened decreased LTV. So those 4 states are safety, clarity, momentum, and identity. And just a really quick breakdown: safety is essentially, I'm in the right place, I'm doing the right thing. Clarity is, I know what I'm doing first, I know what I'm doing next, but I also know what not to do next, because that's also just as important in following kind of the order of operations. Momentum is, again, is just as we said, making sure that within the first 24, at most 48 hours, they have a significant win under their belt. They've gotten a piece of progress going. It's a closed loop task that they understand, hey, cool, I just did this, I got this result, what's next? And then the last one is identity, which is simply making sure that they know that they're in a place where others who are dealing with the same things are as well. And so this can be achieved as easily as something as, introducing somebody to another member of a group or of a program that is in the same spot, and just identity through proximity is what I like to say. And just saying, hey, you're struggling with X and Y and Z. Hey, Sally is also over here, and she also has experience in X and Y and Z like you have. And I think you guys would make a really great, just a really great accountability partnership. That will do so much for the retention of your client, more so than almost anything else. So I think the onboarding, to answer your question, the onboarding, I think, is the most missed opportunity for a momentum and kind of that designed intentionality with your client relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up the whole idea of accountability, and I figure that that must be sort of where your bread is buttered as a client success architect. So, how do you view the concept of accountability through the work that you do? I'm curious to get your answer there.
I actually really, really love this question. I was just having a conversation with one of my really good friends the other day, and he was kind of struggling with some of this stuff and balancing how he shows up for clients and making sure they get good results and what all that looks like. So again, I'll come at it from two different ways: from the founder to the client, or from the business to the client, and also from the client to the business. From the business to the client, I think oftentimes we get caught up in, oh, I'm providing value through convenience. I'm there for them all the time. I'm there for them anytime they have a question, or I spend so much discretionary extra time, with the clients trying to help them get results, things like that. Or on the flip side, it's like the client should know that they should already use the system. I don't want to spend any time with the client, but that's a whole different problem. So at the end of the day, the way that I like to put it, again, framing from the business to the client accountability, is you are valuable not because of the convenience that you provide, but because of the results that you can create, regardless of the method or the medium in which those results come. And so training your client, because it's also, again, it's very important, not only train your team, train your client. Train your client to know when, where, how to reach you, and then make sure that you are continually holding up those boundaries and also showing them why those boundaries actually help them and turning it around, I think is really, really key. On the flip side, in terms of the client to the business, I like to make sure that there's a portion of the sales process that they actually agree, either sales or marketing, that they're directly or indirectly agreeing to, that gives them a sense of accountability to the process. Because then it's not going to be just this person who comes in and is like, oh, hey, I'm giving you guys all of the accountability, all of the responsibility to fix my whatever problem I'm hoping you solve. It becomes much more of a thing of, I am responsible for this problem. These people are going to help me solve it in X and Y and Z ways. But whether or not I achieve this outcome that I would like to on the other side of this issue, that at the end of the day is my responsibility. I am simply seeking out help to put the pieces together from this other person. But whether or not the puzzle actually gets completed at the end of the day, that's on me. And making sure that your clients at scale have that level of responsibility and integrity with it is going to save you a lot of headache down the road in how you deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. Bradley, as a motivational speaker myself, I know all about the importance of value proposition. So, with the work that you do, whether you're helping clients with their coaching, consulting, or a SaaS company, is my friend, what do you think people need to know about increasing their profit margin, but also valuing their value proposition from whether you're an entrepreneur or an organizational leader? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, I would say, from marketing, it's really interesting. I spend a lot of time, and do a lot of, obviously, in client success, but I also spend a lot of time in marketing and sales for these companies. Reason being is because I realized a long time ago, if we make sure that we properly engineer the promises on the front end, we don't need to spend so much time cleaning up the crap on the back end. So if we make sure that the marketing is set and the sales are making the right expectations, we're usually, it makes things a lot easier. So with that being said, in terms of a value proposition for clients, a topic that I love to explore with people, and it just unlocks so many things, is this concept of unmarketed delivery versus marketed delivery. Everybody thinks that when you have a new feature, a new product, a new line, a new benefit to your platform, whatever, that you immediately go and you say, oh my God, I'm going to tell everybody about it. I'm going to tell my email list. I'm going to tell those 5 prospects who ghosted me last week and see if they're going to, jump back in, or, things like that. My challenge to that is always, what if we specifically engineered some of these enhancements, some of these deliverables to be only something that we say on the back end, to then strategically over deliver on promises and give the client success team or client success person, whoever's doing the delivery, an opportunity to really shine and really over deliver and deepen their relationship with the client. And it's usually just this totally foreign thing, but not everything needs to be marketed on the front end. Some of it can and should be saved for a specific engineered unmarketed delivery moment where you can get so much relational equity with the person, then leveraging that into a referral ask, a testimonial ask, things like that. So in terms of value proposition, the best advice or the best framework shift I would have is that, in terms of making sure that you know what to keep on the back, what to put forward in the front, what's most important for the client to know, and then what you can save as a moment of kind of surprise delight for the client.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you you come at working with your clients with an upfront approach, because I know that you believe that buyers and the people that you work with are more skeptical now than they have ever been, and they're less forgiving. So I'm curious to ask you about trust and gaining the trust for the people that you work with, especially if they've been overpromised and underdelivered, because people have sort of what I call the 24-hour news cycle mentality. If something doesn't work immediately, instead of letting it marinate, they kind
Right.
of bolt for the door. So I'm curious about, under that context, I'm curious about building trust and relationships and how you go about that, my friend.
Yeah. Everybody says right now that trust has never been harder to gain with people, with the market, with buyers, etc. And exactly to your point, that because so many people have been burned by offers and this online biz op, make money online, coaching, consulting industry before. My argument to that is actually the exact opposite. I think trust has never been easier to gain because people have been burned by so many things before. And so when you think about it, it really gives you an opportunity. I think there's a huge opportunity right now to basically, again, I say this a lot, systematically and at scale. Systematically means without you in the day to day using systems, and at scale means regardless of how many clients you work with, it's still able to happen. So systematically and at scale, delivering on a promise, not all of them, just a promise that you made to the client within a fraction of the time that they thought it was going to be delivered in. If you can just simply do that at scale for every client you work with, they're your client for life. They will love you for life. They will tolerate so much friction. I'm not saying you can go out and do anything you want after that, but they will tolerate so much more friction in the client success, in the client journey, right? For however long they're with you, because the bar is so low. Everybody goes in expecting the worst, and usually the worst is what they get. So if you can just simply set yourself apart from day one, I think from there it's cake.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bradley, you also said that client success is no longer merely a soft function, and we have to change our approach and our thinking. So I'm wondering if you can elaborate on how you think we should think about this differently, my friend.
Yeah. I actually made a LinkedIn post about this a little while ago. This really aligns with this, which is everybody, I think a lot of people will assume that the sales department, sales function, marketing function, front end, overall, etc., is responsible for the most potential and the most, the most potential of revenue brought into the business. I would actually argue that it's the back end, the client success, that is responsible for the most potential of revenue. Because you think about it, sure, the front end, the marketing, the sales, they're getting the person in the door. Usually a front end offer is going to be one of the lowest margin offers there are within a company's, gambit of different things that they do. So from a revenue, and more importantly, honestly, a profit perspective, there's really going to be a cap to the percentages and to the margin you can have there from a front end offer. But a back end offer, the ascension offer, as a rule of thumb, I always like to make sure is at least twice as high a margin as the front end offer, and usually the price point is at least twice as high as well. So you're making bank on an ascension offer. Plus, if you can, my golden rule of thumb is for every 10 clients you bring in, you should have one client coming in through a referral with zero customer acquisition cost. So if you can then also do that, immediately your average client value increases by 10%. And who's responsible for both of those things? Your client success team and the relationships that they build with your clients. So I would actually argue, in terms of acquired revenue, yes, sales and marketing are most key there. In terms of a potential or a missed opportunity for revenue, it's client success, and not only revenue, for profit as well. It's client success all day, because they're the ones who are responsible for not only increasing the total client value, but then also making sure that the client stays, ascends, the relationship deepens, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bradley, I want to ask you, how do you make the referral process a more natural experience without sounding desperate or making it a request? How do you make it a more natural process in your view, my friend?
Yeah. So everybody thinks that you need to wait until the end of a program or the end of an offer to ask for a referral because everybody thinks that that's when the results will look objectively the greatest. Therefore, you can ask for, you can ask for it then because then that's when you'll have the most kind of leverage for it. I actually argue that that is the worst time to ask because at the end of a program, the end of an offer, everybody's comparing what they did or didn't achieve to the results that you did or didn't promise them they would at the very beginning. And usually those things don't really add up because we have a tendency to overpromise on the front end. But also in addition, they're also focusing on the next thing. They're focusing on the next solution to their problem, figuring out what's happening next. Like their mind isn't on you anymore. So I like to make sure that you're asking for referrals usually between 30 and 50% of the way through the offer. The other two really cool times to ask for it are in the onboarding process. And people are like, wait, you asked for referrals in the onboarding process? Yes, because when you can again systematically and at scale over deliver in that first 24 to 48 hours, they're primed to say, oh, wait, you know what? My friend Sally would actually love to join this as well. I just joined. I would love to do this with her. Let me get you guys on the phone with her. The other really good time to ask is I like call it the valley, between 3 and 6 weeks in. Usually this is when people either really start to disengage or you can get them to re-engage. And again, having an unmarketed delivery moment there can do wonders. And the reason you want to do it at those 3 times, so within the first 72 hours, 3 to 6 weeks, and then 30 to 50% of the way through, is because those are the moments when the belief that the result will be achieved is usually the highest. Again, forgetting when the results look objectively the greatest, you want to do it. You want to ask for those types of things at referral, testimonial, ascension, all three, when the belief that they will achieve results is the highest. Because again, then they're not going to be comparing back to whatever you did or didn't promise them on the front end, how that's aligning, etc. And you can really leverage again the relationship and the depth of results you've been able to get for them immediately right off the bat. And then regardless of whether what happens at the end, how they continue, how they move forward, if they exit the program, whatever, you're able to make the most of the relationship as it grows.
Yeah, and just because I'm personally curious, I wanted to ask you about how you manage burnout and psychological safety in the work that you do. Like, how do you decompress, and whether it's through music or through food or through movies, the importance of managing burnout, how do you do that effectively from a personal and professional perspective, and the best advice you have about how really checking in on your psychological well-being at work. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, personally, I'm a piano player, so I play a lot of piano, gym, exercise, things like that. I count my blessings every day. I'm very fortunate that I do really enjoy what I do, and I know that not everybody has the luxury to be able to say that. No job's perfect. This one certainly isn't, but I do genuinely enjoy what I do most of the time. So I'm very fortunate to be able to say that. So that does help in terms of consistency and showing up and things like that. Best advice I have for people is two things. One, your job above all else is to know yourself. And I don't think people spend enough time cultivating the relationship with themselves to know themselves well enough to know how, when, where they can show up to get the most return on their time and when they need to take a step back, because nobody else is ever going to be able to tell you that. You have to know that for yourself. The other thing is, I think there's a really big difference between effort and capacity. Sometimes we have the capacity to work ourselves out, burning the midnight oil, et cetera. Like we have the capacity to give a 12 out of 10 all the time. And we put in the effort to do so. But if we do that, our capacity and the limit on that is going to shrink with time, because then we're going to continue burning ourselves out. So I think there's a different skill set that goes into executing effort versus building capacity to be able to do more, to be able to put in more inputs when it counts. And building that capacity, that work is a very different set of work than building more effort or putting in more effort, because more effort is just it's a addition, sometimes even a multiplication question. Building capacity, that is a look at, again, back to the question of, do you know yourself well enough to know how and when, where the best times for you to show up, and getting to know yourself better at that level. So I would say knowing the difference between effort and capacity and where your balance lies, and then also knowing yourself well enough to know when, where, and how to execute.
Yeah, and Bradley, as a millennial yourself, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the whole idea of business innovation and how it's related to client success and how you're using the innovation and business to help your clients be more successful. So, what do you think is the correlation there, my friend?
Biggest thing right now is AI, and I'm sure that's probably an answer to that question you get all the time, and everybody does.
Yeah.
But specifically within client success, there are so many opportunities for AI to really become a seemingly personalized yet also very effective at scale tool to use. I'll give you an example. I working with a fitness coaching offer a while back, and for this first win, this really important key moment in the client journey, they were like, okay, cool, how can I get them a win in under 24 48 hours? What we did is we put together an AI tool that knows their entire IP of this fitness coach, how they think, what they advise people in terms of different foods, how to count calories, how to work out in the gym, etc. And the first thing the person did inside the program is they dumped in every item in their pantry and their fridge into this tool that speaks the language, the IP of this fitness trainer, and it gives them a report, a red, yellow, green list of everything they need to keep, moderate, and throw out. And then it gives them reasons why they throw it out or reasons why they moderate it in the IP of the fitness trainer. And then it gives them a grocery list of everything that they need to get to replace the things that they just threw out or they need to moderate. It gives them a reason for all of those so they can start to understand things a lot better. And then it gives them specific questions to look at before they meet with the trainer for the first time. And then hopefully having answers for that so you can really hit the ground running. And so 5 years ago with AI, that was not possible. But now it's really, you can set that up in about an hour using Claude or something. And so it's really, really effective, again, for bridging the gap between the personalization at scale.
Yeah, I'd rather just because I am personally selfishly curious about your answer here. I'm a big believer in embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion within organizational culture or within entrepreneurship. And if you didn't
Sure.
know this, buddy, I was born with cerebral palsy. And at the age of 9, I was told that I would never walk for the rest of my life because of the severity of my disability. So I look for any morsel of space within the organizational culture world to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm curious to ask you from a client success standpoint, what do you think are the competitive advantages of embracing diversity as a strength, my friend?
Yeah, absolutely. I think because I want to, with things like this, I want to be, of course, respectful and want to not speak on something that I'm not 100% every day immersed in, things like that. I think the closest or the simplest jump in terms of things that I have dealt with on a day-to-day basis around this is actually one of my very, very first mentors. Um, Really harped on the importance of being able to jump between, kind of be, in terms of serving clients, to be able to be a chameleon, whether it's serving clients, serving a team, leading a team, etc. To be a chameleon in how you show up to conversations, in terms of, like, are you coming in with more masculine energy, are you coming in with more feminine energy, are you coming into a conversation with a person with a certain set of needs that's different, or a certain set of desires, so the process is different than than others, and just being able to adapt to that, and then be able to adapt a central IP to that person to then help them use it most effectively. And so to that, in terms of serving a more diverse audience, things like that, I think that is one of the most underutilized, underappreciated skills, because not only, of course, it's going to help you to serve a more diverse audience, but I think it helps you also to know yourself and to strengthen within yourself who are the audiences and what are the ways in which I am best suited to help individuals of different backgrounds, of different needs, etc. But then how can I feel also empowered to then divert someone that I don't feel I would be the best fit for? How can I feel confident in that decision to know this person isn't the best fit for me, but I know this other person who would absolutely kick ass at serving this individual? And then how to, of course, confidently make that transition. So again, I think it just comes down to the awareness, and then the ability or the confidence to be able to say, this is not I I am not able, to in certain situations to be able to say I'm not able to serve you best, but I know who would, or I know the right direction for you to go because I want to make sure that you get what you are looking for, and holding that is your gold standard.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bradley, I've got two questions left for you. And
Go for it.
the first of those two questions is this, my friend. So I used to work for the YMCA in my hometown, and I'm a recovering email perfectionist. Okay, so when an email came into my inbox, I automatically wanted to answer it, and for
Sure.
better or for worse, I've told this story multiple times on my podcast, but it's the easiest way to explain this. So I used to work in a very small department. We only had about 5 people, and for better for worse, my boss's desk was right next to mine, and I had answered an email at 6 o'clock at night, not thinking anything of it. And I went to work the next day, and the first thing she told me was, "You know you don't have to answer your emails all the time, right?"
Right.
As soon as I closed, she told me as soon as I closed my laptop at 4:30, unless it's an emergency, I disconnect
Yeah.
from work because I have to have that balance. So I'm curious to ask you, when you close your laptop or turn off your phone, you mentioned your love of music, but I'm also curious, how do you self-reflect on how to be a better person, whether it's in your own personal or professional life, my friend?
I journal every day. It has been a practice of mine for the last, I think, 8 years. Um, Very rarely have missed a day. I'm not going to say I've been perfect, but very rarely have missed a day. And some days, it's a couple of sentences. Other days feels like a novel. And I think if there's one kind of piece of advice or one thing I say to people if they're, interested in getting into journaling, things like that, is take off the expectations of what that looks like and give yourself permission just to show up however that does. I've told some people who really want to get into it, but they're like, oh, when I sit down to write, I don't know what to write, or nothing comes to mind. And I'm like, then write that. Then if that's what it takes, write for the next 90 days, every day, just show up to writing pen and paper and journaling, whatever you're thinking. And if nothing comes to mind, literally write on the page, I can't think of anything right now, and then close it and come back to it tomorrow. Because guess what? On the 91st day, something's going to come up, and then you're going to be like, oh, wait, wow, now I have this journaling practice that I can actually use and lean on to help me process this and through this. But you wouldn't be able to get there without going through the 90 days, and 90 days is a hypothetical number, but still you wouldn't be able to get there without going through the time where you showed up and perhaps you didn't have anything to write, or it wasn't the, perfectly aesthetic process that you see on Instagram or whatever. So I always encourage people to take the judgment off. Sometimes even myself, I've been doing this for 8 years. Sometimes I show up to it and because my mind is racing and I've got a bunch of things to do that day, or maybe I'm super busy, or maybe also on the other end of things, I'm at peace and there's not a lot top of mind that I'm dealing with or need to reflect on, whatever. I will literally write that and I'll say, I feel really at peace right now. Not a lot I need to reflect on, and that's it. And it's like 2 sentences. And again, other days, like literally, actually, yesterday was one of the novel days. I think I wrote like 16 pages yesterday. Most of it was, really good stuff, just reflecting, and I just because I felt like it. But the point is that I wouldn't have been able to get to that deeper level of reflection and processing if I hadn't built up the ability to show up to it.
See, you and I would get along because when I was in journalism school or when I was in college, the coordinating professor of my journalism program wrote out all, like at the top of my assignments. She told me that everything doesn't have to be a novel,
Yep.
and I'm still recovering, but I am getting better. But since you brought up something that interests me, I'm going to attach a two-part question as my last question.
Okay, go for it.
I'm curious to ask you about your views or stances on emotional intelligence, both personally and professionally. And through that lens, how do you want your personal and professional legacy to be defined?
Oof. How do I want my personal and professional legacy to be defined? Gosh, I'm still thinking about like what I want for dinner tonight. I haven't even thought that far ahead yet. Um, to be honest, off the cuff, I'll be honest, I have not spent a lot of time thinking about this question. Off the cuff, personal and professional Personal and professional legacy. You know what? The one thing that is coming to mind is the ability to show up when the future is not yet certain. The ability to show up when what you are showing up for is not yet a guaranteed outcome, or may never be a guaranteed outcome. Actually, my first tattoo is actually a pathway that's walking, and or it's like a brick road, and then it goes out as it goes out, like 3D, or like longer. It starts fading out, and then it eventually fades away into, like, dots and whatever. The reason I got that is because that's essentially my definition of self-trust, is being able to walk down the path when you can't see the path in front of you and still continue walking. And so I would say, as how this relates back to what I do professionally, I don't know. But personally, that's a really, really key ideology for myself. So.
Fair enough, my friend. And I'm just curious, what are your views on emotional intelligence? The other part of that question, buddy.
Yeah. I think it is a double-edged sword. I'm a big Chris Williamson fan, and I'm going to divert to his take on this, which I wholeheartedly agree with. There was a podcast he was doing a while ago. I don't remember what the context was or how it came up or whatever, but essentially they were covering this idea that the question was posed that, would you rather essentially have your head in the sand and not know what's what, or would you rather know the full spectrum of what could be possible and emotions, and the depth of joy you can feel, but also the depth of pain you can feel in some instances, because life is just that cruel. So would you rather be stuck in the middle forever, or would you rather experience the full spectrum of everything? And his answer was, I'd rather experience the full spectrum of everything. And that's my answer as well. And it's interesting because I think emotional intelligence, emotional regulation is not only a way to access that full spectrum, but then also to guide yourself through that process of uncovering that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bradley, I want to ask you, buddy, if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that, my friend?
Yeah, sure. I'm super active on LinkedIn. I post every day there. So it's my LinkedIn, and then my website is just my name, bradleyrausch.com.
Fabulous. Well, I'm avid on LinkedIn myself, so we'll have to stay connected that way, my friend. But I want to thank you for joining me to engage in conversation about client success, your views on life, liberty, and everything in between, my friend. I think you're doing great work, my friend. I want to encourage you to keep up the good work, and I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Thank you, man. I appreciate all the kind words, and back at you. I appreciate the time.